Namaste. A very warm welcome to today's guest talk. The title today is Finding Flow, the Psychology of Optimal Experience. The speaker with us today is Ms. Richa Sharma, who is a counseling psychologist and a musician with a decade-long experience in the fields of mental wellness, parenting, education, and meditation. She holds postgraduate degrees in applied psychology and English literature and a certification in music therapy. She's also trained in classical music and features as a voice artist and composer in numerous creative projects in collaboration with global artists. Welcome, Richa. It's lovely having you once again with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to a lovely session with you as usual. Over to you.
Thank you, Arunima. Namaskar, everyone. Good evening. I'm really happy to welcome all of you to this talk. Before I begin talking about this topic, I also wanted to share my intention of talking on this topic. Okay, so why I felt that this could be a good subject to talk about, right? We all have heard the word flow, right? All of us know flowing like a river. We've come across this term right since our childhood. But in terms of positive psychology, it's got a very different connotation, and that's what I'm interested in sharing with all of you. Okay, I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes,
Visible.
yeah.
Okay. So here is a personal anecdote that I want to begin with, and that is when I was in 8th standard. So imagine I probably was 12 or 13 years of age, and I was studying in a residential school, a women's boarding school. Okay, so lush green nature, and we had this rule after dinner that students would get to watch 1 hour of television. Okay, and all my classmates enjoyed watching TV that time a lot, and I loved that time because the whole hostel would go down to watch TV and I would get to be in my room alone. Okay. And I continue to remember that experience of the starry sky and the beautiful moon. And I would take out I had a small keyboard that my father had given me. I was still learning by the ear. And I would take that out in the comfort of my solitude, decide upon a song that I want to play today. And it might not be very easy, or some melody or some pattern. And because there was no disturbance, everybody was watching television downstairs. And there was so much calm and comfort and serenity. And I would start playing. And although it would seem difficult in the beginning, and then playing more and trying the note again and again, there was a space where I would lose sense of time. There was a space where, it would feel so beautiful being indulgent in that act. There is no reward that is coming from outside. Just doing it felt so right. Okay. And I didn't know that I'm being in the present moment. A 12-year-old kid might not know how that feels at that time. But being a little girl in that boarding school, getting to play my keyboard in solitude while the rest of my classmates were down watching television, and enjoying that calmness of playing the music. This is a background. I'm just starting with a personal story while I talk about this topic. Today, I know 25 years from then that what I experienced was a state of flow. Okay, and we'll learn more about that. And my dear friends, I want to share this topic with all of you here because I feel that flow is for everyone. It's not restricted just to sportsmen or artists or musicians or, the only creative people. Anybody can experience flow. And the benefits are tremendous. We will be looking at all of these aspects as we move ahead. Okay, so with this little background, I welcome all of you to this talk today. I'm so happy to see all of you. let us get started and let us enjoy this topic. Okay. So, here is a moment of reflection for all of you. Just take a moment, think about your own life, and consider along the lines, have you experienced a moment where time just stopped and you felt fully absorbed in what you're doing? Okay. And to rephrase the same question in another way, when was the last time you felt fully engaged in a task and hours just seemed to melt away? And with this question, I invite some responses on the chat box, or if somebody would like to speak up, feel free to share your ideas or thoughts here.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Namaste. Good evening.
Namaste.
Yes, sir.
For me,
Mhm.
humming a favorite tune in
Mhm.
my bathroom solitude
Yeah.
seems to be a amount of time that
Mhm.
I pleasure very much and I look forward to it.
Mhm.
And this is the solitude of the bathroom and my humming the tune in my own old way, which is not perfect after all, is enjoyable to the soul, no doubt. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your response. Okay, really nice to hear about that. Rest of you, if there's something that keeps coming up ahead, feel free to drop in the chat box and we'll also have interaction towards the end. Okay, so now I move ahead from here. So, what is flow state? There's a definition to this, but more than learning the definition, I think it took me ages to learn to spell the researcher correctly. Okay, so the person who has done wide research in this area, the name is, it's called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. That's the name. Okay, Csikszentmihalyi. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi has done tremendous amount of research in the subject of flow, and lots of books and academic research papers are available. So the moment you type in flow state on Google, you will get to read lots of work by this researcher. And also, when I studied this topic a little ahead, I also felt, although there are not direct comparison or similarities, but the concepts of Buddhism and Taoism around Wu Wei and Lord Krishna talking to Arjuna about around being sthit pragya, or nishkam karm, not expecting the result but just go on doing what you're doing, have some parallels to the flow state. Okay, so the flow state refers to a state of complete absorption in an activity where the challenges of the task match the individual skills and abilities. Okay, and as we move ahead, you will learn that there is an amazing relationship between an individual's abilities and the skills that the task requires. Okay, so imagine if the task does not require any skill, it's a very easy task to do, and you also do not possess the ability to do that task, there is going to be a sense of apathy, you're just disinterested in doing that task. Okay, if the task is very easy and you are quite skilled and you can do it just in a blink, you might not be interested, you might feel bored. Well, you will hear lots of children coming to home today and telling, mom, teacher is just repeating the same lesson again and again. I don't feel challenged enough. I don't feel interested enough, right? So that is a state where a lot of us feel stuck. And that's where boredom comes in. Even in our jobs, if you do not feel challenged enough, or you feel that you get to learn something, or extend your skill set in a manner, you don't find great interest in pursuing that task a lot. And if a task is very difficult, so imagine if I am asked to go to Mount Everest for trekking. I do not have the ability and I do not have the endurance and strength to do that, right? So I will feel anxious. I will feel worried, and if um, I'm going to be marked on it, I know I will be terrible at that task. So the task has to be slightly challenging beyond our ability, but interesting enough to amuse our sense of motivation to pursue that task. I hope I'm making sense. Right? Okay, yes. So Let's look at some characteristics of flow state, right? And these are amazing. And imagine if you get to experience all of these, how awesome that feels, right? So some of these experiences that we get when we are in a state of flow are being totally immersed in that particular task that we are engaging in. There's very intense concentration. You are fully focused because the task is of your interest. Okay. There's great engagement. You feel motivated from inside. There's no outside um, reason for you to be doing it. Okay. You are the task evokes your interest very beautifully. You feel harmonious, and this one is wonderful. You lose your sense of time. So when I said that being in class 8th, I was playing that keyboard and I did not realize how time would pass. And after that 1 hour, my classmates would come up because the TV would be switched off by the warden. And then they would come up and start talking about that serial. Oh my God, how that guy was, how that girl was, all of that daily soap opera kind of stories. And I would remember, oh my God, the time passed so swiftly. I wish I had more time. I'm sure you have experienced that when you engaged in something that you totally love or enjoy doing. Okay, you feel in control of the task. So it's not a very difficult task for you. You know that although it might be challenging, you enjoy that challenge and you feel that you are in control of it. You feel like being in the present moment. There is no worry. You don't think कि कल सुबह हम breakfast में क्या बनाएंगे. You don't have those kind of worries. You're totally immersed here in this present moment. You feel a sense of joy, and there's no thought or worry about anything else, right? Okay, so this happens when we are in a state of flow. So to sum it up in a small statement, lots of sportsmen, musicians, artists, creative people, scientists, researchers that Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and his colleagues had studied when they were studying flow state, they described that the feeling of being in flow feels like the sensation of flowing along with the river, which is why they named the state as the flow state. Okay. So flow can be experienced in a wide range of activities. So there is no set age. I think school children, probably from the time 13 to 14 years of age, because children younger than that definitely experience flow state, but they don't know. They are enjoying the game. They are playing. They are totally immersed in it. But anyone, irrespective of their gender or profession, can experience flow in a wide range of activities, whether you're a homemaker or you work in the office. When you're reading a book, there might be a lot of book lovers here in this community right now. So you might have experienced when you're reading something, you lose your sense of time and you are so focused and you are in the present moment and you feel spontaneous joy. When you're having a good conversation with someone, even when you're studying, you can experience flow state. Well, playing a music instrument, when you paint, dance, cook, or do anything that you love or enjoy, you can experience a state of flow. So here are a lot of benefits of being in flow state. And I actually do not need to share these benefits to convince you on how you should be inspired to explore being in your own flow state. But let's just look at these. So flow definitely regulates our emotions in a very strong way. Okay, so it boosts our sense of creativity, more calmness and serenity inside us. We feel more contented and satisfied. We feel great joy, happiness, intrinsic motivation, strong engagement in the task that we are engaging in, self-actualization. There is actually mention of a phrase called peak experiences. So when you are in a flow state, you have peak experiences. An experience that it's a very heightened sense of being that you get to experience only when you are doing that particular task. And then it goes away. So you do not get to experience it 24 hours a day. That's what makes it so special, right? And there is a strong subjective well-being. You feel overall, you feel very, very good about yourself or about what you're doing overall. And pursuing a state of flow also helps you reduce negative emotions like worry, stress, fear, anxiety, distress, self-doubt. And it can also help us release a lot of pent up emotions. Okay, so when we are engaging in something fully immersed, there might be a lot of residual emotions that might find an outlet. Okay. Um, I also wanted to share certain barriers to achieving a state of flow. Right. So why is it that we're not able to experience it all the time? And these barriers are universal. Any or all of us experience these barriers. And when we'll discover ways to find more flow in our life, we will explore that these barriers or distractions are what we need to put aside. Okay. So the greatest one is a digital distraction. So imagine you decided that you want to do something in this 1 hour. Okay. And you sit to do that. And then the notification comes and you see, I'm just going to check it and then I'll come back to this task. But then you check it and that spirals into another notification, and you check your email and you realize that 30 minutes just went by. I think once you open your Instagram, you don't know how 15, 20, 30 minutes just sink by, right? Which is why we also, in as counseling psychologists to students, we also name these practices as time sinks. Just like water sinks down the drainage, our time sinks down the drainage when we are pursuing a digital distraction without purpose, right? Okay. So also multitasking. I think a lot of us multitask in our day to get a lot of work done. I also am guilty to do that, and it serves some purpose. But if you are intending to explore flow in your life sometime, do what you're doing and be fully immersed into it, and do not divide your attention to a lot of tasks. So just slow down and be immersed here. That's where you can find greater productivity in what you are exploring. Also, the discussion on skills and challenge that I talked about earlier, that is also a barrier. Okay, so if you're taking up a task in your hand, say somebody's mathematical ability is not very strong and they decide, I will be I will be studying a master's degree textbooks in mathematics and I'll solve all those questions. And while you do not possess the basic abilities, that's, I would say, a ridiculous challenge to pick on. Somebody might want to do something more realistic, can be, I will try doing a 30-second plank every day for a month, for 21 days or a month. And in the beginning, it might not be easy. But once you start doing it and once you start opening up your body, stretching a bit, towards the second half of the month, you might feel that this is doable. It's easier, right? So setting realistic tasks is very important. Okay. So these are some of the barriers to flow. Also boredom, lack of interest, and all of that, right? So coming back to the benefits of flow state, there are a few more, right? So your performance can be enhanced considerably. And these are some areas that I discover being in a flow state can help us enhance our performance in. So learning or teaching, acquiring or further nurturing a skill, athletics, art, creativity. Okay. Um, it helps you feel more confident. I'd like to elaborate what self-efficacy means to some of us who might not be familiar with this term. Self-efficacy is our own belief in our ability to perform a certain task. Okay. So if it is music, I might have a very strong self-efficacy. I might feel, okay, I have to sing a bhajan or a song, I will do it. Okay. If it is a lecture or debate or discussion on politics or finances, I have a very low self-efficacy in that area because I do not possess the knowledge or skill set in that direction, right? So doing a task that you enjoy doing and being in a flow state in that task boosts your sense of belief in your ability. Okay. It makes you feel more engaged with your work. It enhances your focus, memory, concentration. A lot of you might be familiar with this term called neuroplasticity, which is an amazing concept that states that our brain is actually plastic, and the food that we eat or the practices that we engage in every day consistently, and the lifestyle that we pursue has the potential to manage the plasticity of our brain. So if we engage in more healthy pursuits, the areas in our brain that can enhance that particular skill or our memory, they can be more plastic, they can be more enhanced. Okay, so here is a little bit of neuropsychology, and please do not be overwhelmed. It's just a small discussion quickly. So if whatever you can understand, just take that, and there's no need to be a master of this whole concept. I'm also still exploring and learning. So there are certain parts or structures of our brain or processes of our brain that are responsible for certain functions, and what happens to them during the flow state, and what are the benefits that that particular act gives us. Okay, so the first one is a default mode network, which, so our default mode usually is, the wandering of our mind. Our mind is called a monkey mind, right? Or we keep daydreaming. So that's our default state a lot of times, right? This particular mode deactivates when we are in a state of flow. So when we are in a state of flow, we do not daydream, or our mind is not wandering. So imagine we are very relaxed, but we are very focused. So it's a combination of both. Okay, so what are the benefits? You experience enhanced focus and great creativity and high level of processing in your cognition. Okay, then there's a part in our brain called prefrontal cortex. It's responsible for planning and making decisions, and it pacifies during a state of flow. So you're not in a phase of planning or thinking about the future constantly. So because it quiets down, you are totally immersed in what you're doing. And you're not distracted by thoughts that are not related to that particular task at hand. Okay. Then I think a lot of us have heard about dopamine. Okay, and it's a reward system. It makes us feel or seek reward, right? So dopamine is what um, is us checking our phone constantly when we post a status and looking at who saw our status, or who liked our posts, etc. So that's a very feel good factor. It is released during flow state, and it gives us a feeling of pleasure and positive reinforcement. And then there's another part of our brain which is called amygdala, which processes emotions and especially responses of fear. Because especially when we feel threatened, then amygdala is at work. So what happens to this part of our brain? It becomes less active during the flow state. Okay, and that is why you don't feel a great sense of fear. You feel calm and you feel freer from negative emotions. Okay, I think that's a lot for a while. So I'll just take a few seconds of break and just look at all of you here. Um, are you all here with me? Yeah, I'm making sense. Yes, okay. Are you, are you enjoying this topic? Sounds good. Yes, thank you for the thumbs up. I thought that was an overdose of information around the parts of brain, etc. So yes, so let's get back. And now here comes the most interesting part of our talk here. How to find your own flow, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, how to learn certain ways that allow you to enhance your own optimal experience. Okay, I think I found my sense of flow while making music, and I continue to do that. And also when I read a book, also when I journal. Okay, and I am somebody who loves learning ways to enhance one's productivity. Okay, and so here are a lot of ways that work for me, and these are the ways that are backed by research as well. Okay, so and I feel that they will offer tremendous benefit to all of you. Okay, so let's get started. And if you have a journal or a pen paper, you can take in your notes, and I hope you find great value in this particular section of the talk right now. Yes. So the first one is identify your most focused time of the day. Okay. So while it is said that Brahma Muhurat or early morning in various cultures is the best time of the day, and it works for me perfectly. It works for a lot of people. But I had not been like this in my school days. So when I was in school or college, I was a night owl. And I loved when the whole world is asleep, I would wake up at night. I would be awake at night already, and I would wait for everyone to sleep and grab my book and read. And there was no distraction. And I know a lot of us here are night owls. And I respect you for that. So there's no judgment. All of us need to find or explore the way that works best for us. So there are 24 hours in a day. And I would not recommend a night owl. Um, I mean, if you have to go to work the next day at 5 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. in the morning, then probably being a night owl is not serving you right now. Okay, so you need to look at your own schedule, your own day, and try and test certain things for yourself and see what is working best in your case. So in my case, I think being a morning lark works best for me. I try getting up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and I feel super productive in that time. Right? So engage with your most important tasks. आपका सबसे जरूरी काम, आपका सबसे beautiful project in the whole day. Like Robin Sharma calls this a 90-91 technique. And he says, devote the next 90 days of your life, the first 90 minutes of your productive space. So if you get up at 5 a.m., but if you want to sit for work at 7 or 8 a.m., devote that 90 minutes on the single most task of your interest, of your passion. Okay, the task that you want to devote yourself to. It's called 1991 in Robin Sharma and lots of his books. So engage in the task that is most important for you at the time when you're most productive. So for me, the most important task at the present moment is making tiffin for my child and getting her ready for school, I think. And that's something I love doing, and giving an early start to my day. Right. But for you, it might be different. If you're a school or college student, you might want to work on your project, right? You might want to work on your own startup venture. If you are a learner, you might want to read a lot of books and prepare your own course around that book. If you are a practitioner of music or yoga, you might want to work on your own project, right? So whatever it is, define what is the time where you feel greatest focus and use that time to pursue what you want to do, right? Some of us are also our best self when we have a nap. So I think for me, because I wake up very early in the morning, at afternoon I need a small downtime. And if I don't get that, I feel a lot cranky. So a little bit of nap, and then you have your second phase of productivity. That's the evening phase. Okay. So you work around this area and work, and researchers have found out that 90 minutes is the maximum that you can find your flow in a day at a time. Okay, so don't stretch it a lot. मैं 3 घंटे बैठी ही रहूंगी यहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं करूंगी, नहीं, your work won't be done. That's not realistic. Okay, so 90 minutes is the maximum, and then you need to take a break, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about break and the task. There's a very wonderful balance that I'll share about here. Okay, the next aspect is challenge yourself. So don't pick a task. So today, if I tell you all to learn the tables of 2 or 3 or 4, or learn basics, I think it's not done. It's not fair. There has to be a ratio between your challenge and skill. So engage in activity that presents a level of challenge for you that matches your skill. So what I did last month, I picked up a book and I thought I want to complete that book. And I had some amazing support from my great friends. And in 21 days, I completed 21 chapters of that book. So my because I did not have a lot of other tasks, my daughter's exams were over, I could afford to expend that time on that experiment, right? Okay. So and that was challenging. Reading a book with a small kid is not easy. We all know that. So it was challenging and yet interesting. And when I did it, when that task was accomplished, I felt wonderful about doing that, right? So find a challenge that matches your skill, or that could be slightly above your skill, but you feel you will be able to do it. Okay. Have very clear, well-defined objectives. So if my objective is to lose weight, I think it's a great objective. A lot of us have this objective. Okay. But just I think that I want to lose weight. It's just a very vague objective to pursue. Okay. Now, if I make it more specific, more measurable, more, if there is an action that I attach it to it, if it's more realistic. If I say that I want to arrive at 40 kgs of weight, it's not possible. I gave birth to a child, and that might not be suitable for my body. So I need to be very realistic about my target. So I can say, I will walk 30 minutes every morning after dropping my child to school. I think this is very specific, and this is doable, and this attaches me to a certain task. Okay, so you have your own objective, and you break it into a manageable milestone or a sub goal. Okay, so you attach your goal. I want to finish this project. That's a great goal to achieve, but the project being accomplished is an outcome. It's a product of what we are going to do every single day. So make your focus on what you will be doing every single day. So I every day after my breakfast, I will sit for 1 hour exclusively dedicating to this project, and I will not allow any digital distraction to affect me in that time. That is doable, right? And it might seem a little challenging in the beginning, but once we begin pursuing it, we might explore ways on how to get that done. Okay, tasks that are too easy might lead to boredom. I said that once before. And tasks that are very difficult could result in frustration, and you might feel like a failure, and you would not want to take that up again, right? Now align your passion and your purpose. So engage in tasks that genuinely evoke your interest, and tasks that genuinely tap into your natural talent. So uh, suppose if we have somebody here who is very passionate about dancing, so that's a natural talent. And if you capitalize on that passion and that talent, you will definitely do wonders. If somebody out here is very interested in a meditation practice or yoga or holistic well-being, and you read and explore, you take up apt courses in that direction, and you keep on practicing that in your own life, then that's where you will be able to experience your flow more and more, right? Okay, now see, this is also amazing. So the experience of flow that I've been talking about, I'm sure all of you have experienced that at least once in your lifetime by now. Okay, so explore what are your flow triggers. Triggers means the circumstances or the events that lead you to experience a flow state. Okay, so there are certain specific conditions and activities that help you experience that. So flow triggers would be a combination of your interests, the skills that you have, and the challenges that the task presents. Okay, so I might be interested in reading or making music, and my challenge might be I have a small deadline and I have to complete writing a song. And the skills, I might have a skill of songwriting or composing a music or singing. This is just a vague example. You can put that example in your own setting. The triggers for flow will vary from person to person. It won't be the same for everyone. So for me, I think a soothing, soft music working in the backdrop might work very well. For someone, that might be a distraction, right? So we all need to identify what works best for us. Okay, somebody might be more drawn to enter a stage of flow in the midst of a park, surrounded by nature. And for somebody else, it might be completely locked in a room with AC on and a very, that another kind of space, not a very natural setting. Okay, so reflect. So this is a reflection for you that you might need to do for the rest of the days ahead. Reflect on the activities that make you lose track of your time, that make you feel fully absorbed and energized into that. Okay. Yeah, I think this is again very important. So the space that we are in has a great effect. I think I had a talk on decluttering few months back, which stated that where we actually underestimate the impact of physical objects that are around us. We feel अरे हाँ ठीक है सामान है पड़ा है, like that, but that has certain energy and certain impact. You will feel very restless or irritable if you're surrounded by random stuff here and there. Okay, so remove distractions. Okay, Only have the things, have a separate space if you can afford, if you can have a space in your room where you can work in that particular task that you intend to work on. Dedicate that space for that particular purpose, and it'll have that energy. It'll keep inviting that particular energy around you. Remove distractions from that space. Have the material that you will be needing for that particular task. So if you have a notebook or a diary on which you enter your ideas around it, keep it over there. If you know that you need water, keep a glass of water already beforehand, so you don't need to keep getting up to find something again and again, and that will disrupt your sense of flow, right? So for that, that time block where while you're seated to do that task, be fully immersed and have everything that you need at that time. And I would honestly confess that once or twice you will goof up, you will miss, and this is very normal. And only by exploring you will realize ki these are the things that I need, these are my paraphernalia, and I need to have all of these at a place. Okay, make your space comfortable and convenient to work on for a longer period of time. So you need to have a sitting posture that does not disrupt you. It doesn't hurt your back a lot, and you can definitely get down and you can stretch. We'll have that on the on another slide. And I feel if you are an aesthetic person like me, probably having a flower or some nature, some plant around yourself, something very sweet or aesthetic might work for you. At the moment, being a mother of a small kid, I think the maximum aesthetic I could manage at this talk was this cute little penguin behind my back. Okay, so make your space comfortable to work on. And yes, this, I think it's implicit. All of us know it, but a lot of us fail to practice it in our life as we tend to grow older and older. Okay, so when we are kids, it's very easy for us to have a hobby or to do things outside of school or studies, right? And as we grow older, lots of other things, other responsibilities start taking our space. But I really encourage all of you, especially my adult friends here in this talk, please have, if you're parents, mothers, if you're working women especially, I know it's very difficult to find time, but please try to have one particular thing that really nourishes your heart. It really recharges your battery, and all of us need that. So have one particular activity that you really enjoy and try to incorporate, even if it is for 10 minutes a day. I think some of my friends here who are attending this session right now are book lovers, and they have this practice of reading a book for 10 to 15 minutes every day before they go to bed. And I feel it's an amazing practice to have. So when it's 9 p.m., they drop everything and they sit down and they read a few pages of the book, at least till 9:15. And they have inspired everyone else also to pursue it, and it's very contagious. And I'm telling this with experience, once you start doing it, in the next few days, you start feeling drawn or inspired to do, you want to do that. So the trigger is just get into that action, and after that, the action will start calling you. At that point of time, you'll feel, oh my god, it's my time to read now, I need to do that. And if you don't do that, you feel more irritable, and you miss it for a day, the next day you definitely want to make up for it, right? So have a hobby, whatever it is. If it's gardening, gaming, swimming, if you can start your day with that hobby, beautiful. If you can end your day with that hobby, it's amazing. If you can have it at a mid chunk of the time in your day, it is replenishing you, it is mandatory, just as important as food, air, water, and sleep. Have a hobby, have something that nourishes you, have an activity that you're doing without uh, any purpose, without a reward, especially monetary reward. A lot of things that we do is driven by money. Okay, this is the technique that I was going to talk about, and some of you might have heard about this. So this is called a Pomodoro technique, and the ratio here is 5:25. Okay, and what researchers that work with this practice have suggested, you choose a task that you want to do for right now, and you take your phone away. You are not going to check any messages at that time, and you set your alarm after 25 minutes. So for that 25 minutes, you will fully immerse yourself in that particular task. So probably, even if it is cooking or folding your clothes or doing laundry, I mean, just full 25 minutes dedicated to that task at hand. Okay. And After that, take a 5 minute break. And us break में, there is one particular thing that you never have to do. You never have to internet surf in that break. So that 5 minute break is meant for something like just step down from your work desk and do some stretching, do a quick chore, have a fruit, make a drink, go and hug your child or your partner, and then just come back. And with experience, I'm telling this, if you do a very high intense focused work for a certain period of time, and when you take a break and then you come back, you feel you're starting afresh with more energy to pursue that same task. Okay, now what happens here, according to psychology, is we have a certain attention span. Okay, attention span is the duration till which our attention can linger on a particular task. And unfortunately, due to the advent of quick reels, TikTok videos, YouTube shorts, are consuming very quick content, a lot of messages, a lot of information obesity, like infobesity is a term, lot of overload at a very quick span of time, which makes us lose patience. And I really appreciate and value all of you out here. You're sitting here for about 40 minutes here right now. Okay, so really kudos goes to all of you for keeping your attention over here in this talk. Yeah, all this while. So take that quick break and then go back to your activity and decide ki ab is next 25-30 minutes mein this is what I'm going to do, and do that with your full attention, full focus. And then take another 25 minutes break, and you can have a third round of that quick productive patch. So now this combined, it's 1.5 hour. You had a nice productive block. So 3 blocks of quick work and small blocks of rest in between. Okay, now try doing this before dismissing that this doesn't work for me, right? And you might arise. So I'm now here. I have mentioned a generalized statement, and yesterday I think we were having a discussion in our home that most of our talks are based around the average, right? But the average individual does not exist. So on an average, a 25-minute work and 5 minute of rest works for an average person. But we are not averages, we are wholesome, we are amazing. So for you, a 30-minute or 40-minute might work, and you might want to take a 10-minute break or a 2-minute break and then come back. So find your own Pomodoro technique that works for you. Okay, and like I said, no internet at that particular time, and no random mindless surfing, no doom scrolling, is what I mean. If you need to use the internet for researching or studying, exclusively focus on that purpose. Okay, and this is the last one for today, and that is choose a daily recovery time. Okay, so while I mentioned about having a hobby, and hobby recharges just our battery, but also have some time in your day that enables you to replenish yourself. Okay, um, where you are totally detached from work or technology. And this is where you can sit with your child and read a storybook, you can watch a movie, you get to meditate or practice a small technique of grounding or mindfulness, you can listen to music. And the more I explore this aspect, and even in my personal experience, I realized that listening to a lyric free music, a music without any words, is best for inducing a state of flow or for enhanced productivity. Because when you listen to music with words, words carry certain emotions or messages, and you start attaching your own, okay, it's a breakup song, I had a breakup with this person, and you start going back to your past story, and that doesn't serve any purpose right now here in your life at the space where you are. Okay, so songs might have some triggers that are not serving you any purpose here right now. So listen to an instrumental music that has a same pace throughout. It's not drut at one time and then vilambit at another time. So it's got a similar tempo, and it's mainly instrumental. And you play that music on a very low volume, so it's just out there, and it supports you feeling more relaxed and yet productive at the same time. Okay, so this was choosing your daily recovery time, and you might have a different activity that works for you. Okay, and I would say that not all activities are something that we can do every day. So I love spending time with my loved ones. So, and while we might try to make that non-negotiable, sometimes it doesn't happen as much. So anything that you can do in your day that makes you feel more connected with your loved ones or your own self, have a, I would say, have a box of all of those activities and do whatever you can at that particular day. Okay. To end my talk here today on finding flow, which is a science and research around optimal experience, being in our best zone, being in our best space at doing what we are doing with respect to productive self, and yet enjoying what we are doing. I found this amazing message from Taoism, and there's a concept called Wu Wei in Taoism, and this message says, align with the rhythm of life and discover the harmony of effortless action. So I leave you all with this note here. And I wrap up my talk and I hand it over to you, Arun. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Richa. Thanks a lot for a lovely, comprehensive talk and sharing your insights on a beautiful topic that you chose for us. Thanks a lot. Um, Participants, if anyone wants to share something or anyone has a question, please go ahead. You can use the chat box or raise the hand. I'll follow up with you. So, Daksha, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you, Richa ma'am, for inviting me. And it was really important one because I have my exams coming up from 8th of April, and I must say that it was really regenerating, and it was really informative and actually helpful. I have a few questions about how do we reconnect ourselves to the hobbies or the things which we used to like as a child or as a teenager and would want to inculcate currently, but I personally find it difficult to inculcate those hobbies right now. I do have some responsibilities, as you mentioned, that we have a very difficult schedule to follow, but how do we inculcate that, and how do we finally start enjoying them and be in flow with that?
That's a very beautiful question, Daksha. Yeah, and first of all, I would like to wish you all the best for your upcoming exams. And your question on how to reconnect with the hobby that we had when we were younger and we're not able to pursue it right now. My suggestion would be to start small. Okay. So while every day you might not be able to engage your time in that hobby. Okay. So as a student, you might choose, a Saturday, a small chunk of time on your Saturday or Sunday morning for pursuing that. Or you might even try doing that once in a month. Okay. So start small, find like-minded people who might have the same passion or hobby as you have, and try to be in that particular community and explore that hobby. That will give you greater enrichment. Like I have my book lover friends here in this group right now, and I really feel that having an accountability buddy or people that have same passion as you and that talk about the same concepts as you, that keeps pepping you up, and you time nikal lete hain hum. It's not very difficult, it's not very challenging. So in 24 hours a day, it's not 24 hours a day that we are going to school or we are working on a project. So try using some of the techniques that I suggested when you're working on your project. Um Somebody says, we are too busy being busy. So the concept of being busy seems so glamorous that we just want to hold on to that. So when you're working on your project, fully immerse yourself on that project. That time, do not call your mother and ask aaj apne khane mein kya banaya and all of that. So at that time, you just focus on your work. And when you have a free patch of time, that's when you can induce some leisure activity. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, surely, because I use Pomodoro technique for studying and it works really well. But I had no idea that I could do it with other tasks also. So that's a wonderful suggestion coming in. Thank you so much for your time and energy.
Thank you. Richa, we have words of appreciation for you in the chat box. You've already checked out. Participants, anyone else wants to share something or ask something, please go ahead.
Thank you, Richa, for this lovely talk. I have a question. So, like, there is a lot of work which is involved being an entrepreneur or driving any particular topic. There is a lot of social media responsibility that lies on my head as well. And for which, there's a lot of, as you said, that no technology during that time. But if your work falls in that area, so the chances of getting drifted away become all the more higher. Yes, I do meditate regularly and I try and bring myself back, but still, people who are working at Instagram, they know it better, that how to distract people like us also very quickly. From from a thing like 60 seconds, it dropped to 30 and now it is 10. And that is, so there's a lot of money being spent there to research that how to make a human mind distracted quickly. What is a suggestion for people like us? Because I believe that social media is something which has become a part of everyone's life. It has become a bare necessity. Earlier, I used to think that going on Instagram is something which is avoidable, but with the way things are moving, it feels it's a necessity for the day, you know?
Thank you, Ruchi, for that question. I think that's a very apt question here. Um, Before I answer your question, I'd like to say that I do follow your work on Instagram and you're actually doing commendable work. So the content that you're creating is of great value. And I understand it's inevitable for somebody who is doing what you are doing, right? So I'd like to share something that works for me, and um, you can tailor and customize this strategy in your own setting. Okay, so so when I have to do a certain work and I have to do more work apart from that which are of diverse areas, and I have a tendency of falling in all directions like a lot of us do, I have certain time blocks in my phone where I have set the alarm in the day. So if morning I'm working, so I have an alarm that will ring at probably 10:30 and that will remind me, okay, this much of time is gone, or at 11:30, and that creates a sense of urgency. And at probably 12:30 or the time when I have to go and pick my child, so I do have reminders in that form that ring. And I mean, I'm keeping my phone away, and I assume that when you're working with your technology, that's the only way you can work, and that is your work. So you very well embrace technology with great love and no judgment that it's harmful, because that is serving you an outlet to share with the world the beautiful work that you are doing. So with a lot of respect, we'll approach it. But before you sit to work on each day, that morning before you open your gadget, you have a small notebook and you gather your thoughts and you write down, these are the things that I need to get done today. And you set a timeline. So okay, so in this 1 hour or this 30 minutes, this is what I'm going to get done. And you set your alarm, so for probably, because if you will be spending a lot of time and you say that there's a great tendency to get distracted, set 2 3 alarms after every 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So for the first 5 minutes, if your attention got digressed, your alarm rang and it kept bringing you to attention. Oh my God, I wasted this much time. So the more you realize how your time is sinking away in that mindless pursuit, the more you will do it, you will be able to gather yourself and be more focused. And after each work, patch or the time block that you're doing, sit and reflect, sit and review what worked for me. as a psychologist, I had this technique called the rose, bud, and thorn. So a rose is a blooming aspect of my day that worked very well in case of work or even in case of students or as mothers, what worked best for me. Bud is something that has a potential possibility, but it did not flower to its optimum. And that is something I can tap on tomorrow as well or the next day. So that's a task that I will do more work on. And thorn are the problems or challenges that I faced. So as an entrepreneur working on creating content around yoga and meditation and well-being and nutrition, etc., your thorn could be you wanted to post your content, but you mindlessly gather into all the extra content that Instagram is throwing at you. And so the more you start tracking it, your rose, bud, and thorn every day, and you can do it like a generalized setting for your whole day, or you can do it exclusively for your work purpose or exclusively as a parent. So whatever goal you have in your life, you can devote this technique into that particular task. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very beautifully explained, and I'm gonna work on this and I will share the feedback with you as well.
Sure, sure. Looking
Thank
forward.
you.
Richa ji, I would like to share something. As you know, when while you're entering the state of flow, I mean, for me, what works best is, I mean, it's like I set a particular time of the day. Like, you know, you were mentioning about your reading sessions, right? With your friends, you were mentioning that, okay, you have got into the habit and all that. So once you, you know, I mean, once you get into that, right? I mean, it is so, your body is so automatically tuned, okay, that when the time comes, like when the clock strikes 9, you forget everything, okay, and your only focus is just, okay, whatever I'm doing, I'm just going to stop it, take my book, and just start reading. That's all. You know, I think it's also about the time that you allot, as you had mentioned earlier, that like in the beginning of the day or the end of the day. So thank you for the lovely session. It's really nice always listening to you. Look forward for more sessions from your end.
Thank you,
Thank
Satya.
you. Thank you.
And as you mentioned, us looking at the clock and it's time to read, this also has a psychology. So this is called classical conditioning. There's great deal of research by Ivan P. Pavlov on dogs. So
Mm-hmm.
when he rang a bell, the dog would salivate because food was being brought at that time. So the presence of food, its aroma, enabled the dog to salivate. And after a few days, there was no food, but when Pavlov would just ring the bell, the dog would salivate. So we can pair our habits to a stimulus, okay? Even a stimulus that we are not conditioned to at that particular point of time, but something that we want to bring in our life. So like you said, at 9 o'clock, maybe it might not be in a habit of everyone to read at the time, but because you have been doing it consistently for a week or for 21 days or for a month, you get conditioned. You look at the clock, now it's time to. So I think conditioning is not great at all times, but if we want to use this technique, let us try to condition good habits in our lives. Right? Thank you for sharing that.
I would also like to say something, Richa. This last part which you mentioned about the rose, bud, and thorn, it's so visual that, I think I'm going to try and use it on anything that I plan to do. Because I think I've got a lot of thorns more than the roses and the buds at the moment. But I think I'm going to, put it down on paper. My task, rose, bud, thorn. First, all the thorns, because that's the first thing that's coming to my mind. Why I'm not doing it, what's, challenging me from proceeding further. And then I'm just going to try and, what do you call it, re-engineer my way through this whole thing. And yeah, I'll keep in touch with you regarding this, my progress, how my progress is going to be. But this is really, this is something that it's like struck me. Plus, of course, all the takeaways, decluttering, the flow, all those things, we can use it in our daily life. And for me, the best time I'm in the flow is on a rainy, cloudy day when the things look really dark, damp, and dull, that's the time when I really feel happy, actually, to tell you the truth, because the sun is not my friend. So I prefer very cloudy days. And when I see that it's going to be a rainy day, then I feel that, oh, I need to get things done. This is my time, So, yeah, thank you for putting up all those points, because it just sort of recollects. I recollect all those things that you had mentioned earlier, especially about decluttering when you had a talk on that. So thank you so much for that, for all those points.
Yeah, I would also like to share. Hello, Richa ji.
Yes,
Good
Palak,
evening.
I would request you to make it quick, please.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just paying gratitude to you. It was a great session, and the points are so nice. Actually, most of the points we are acquainted with, but when you are explaining it, it's just going through our mind, and it's just reinforcing it. So thanks a lot. And Daksha ji asked a question about how to um, go again to the hobby, and that's thing I'm also struggling with. Like I'm trying to regain my focus in music and learning music again. So thanks for that, starting little. And like I am also like I'm trying to listen to the music more. So it's helping me to regain focus and align that I would have to go to a class or to learn music. So yeah, amazing insights. Thank you so much for inviting for this session. And it's so good to see everyone. Good evening.
Thank you, Palak. Thank you, participants, for the lovely interaction. Dr. Bijlani, sir, I request you to share your thoughts, please.
Nirma has already sounded the warning that we don't have too much time. So I'll be brief. The state of flow is basically about doing what we are doing in the best possible way. Most efficiently means accomplishing more in relatively less time and enjoying it. And that's a state that sometime or the other we have all experienced. And that's why one way it has been described is a self-actualization, which means that we actually become what we truly are, what our truly our potential is. We actualize it. We make it a reality. That's what actualization literally would mean. And which means that most of the time we are not working at that level. And that is why flow is something that we notice as something remarkable happening, and we want to repeat that type of an experience. Now, if we look at it from the spiritual angle, uh, our mind and body are working at a level much lower than they are capable of. And that is because we are not letting the hidden divinity actually manifest. The divinity is capable of doing a lot more because we have a divine essence, the soul. And for the divine, everything is possible. So the one that knows all and can do everything, if we are aligned with that, naturally we'll be able to do much more than when we screen ourselves from that hidden source of perfection. And therefore, the state of flow, in a way, actually symbolizes, from the spiritual angle, aligning ourselves with that source. And that we do when we are trying to do something that we are really good at. And that is something that we have been blessed with. And that is where the limitations of neurophysiological explanations also come in. Because, yes, the brain has been wired in such a way that there is a default mode circuit. So that is switched off. There is a circuit that pays executive attention, keeps us focused and concentrated. That also is to some extent switched off. And instead, we let some other set of neurons take over, and some other sets of neurotransmitters are released by those, which make us happy in that state, dopamine, all that happens. But then, in the same sort of state, using the same types of same parts of the brain and the same neurotransmitters as the channelizers. One person ends up creating a beautiful piece of music, another creates a beautiful painting, and a third one creates a beautiful piece of literature. We do not know what is the difference in the brain, if at all. At least if this difference is there at a physical or chemical level, it is too subtle for anyone to know. Which means that there is something more subtle than what we discover in the brain that actually is responsible for making us different type of individuals. We have been made differently because the divine needs all types of people. And therefore, when one person is that type of state, he ends up producing a poem and another a painting, and so on and so forth. Now, this is something which leads to that state of flow and makes us do our best. This is something which, as a writer, I have experienced, as a speaker, I have experienced. And what I find is that you are at your best when your preparation is relatively less rather than more. Secondly, because you are depending upon a source, a higher source, which goes beyond your mental preparation. So too much preparation does not really help. And this is maybe good for the exam going candidates to know, like Daksha. The preparation is less rather than more. Secondly, the sincerity of intent. Whether the intention is to produce a masterpiece so that you'll get name and fame is one type of an intent. And the other intent is that if I have been blessed with a particular type of quality, a particular type of talent, so that my brain channelizes that aspect of the universal consciousness which leads to speaking or writing or so on, then it should be such that it should lead to something which will do some good to those who are willing to receive that type of thing. So those who are receptive to it, they should really get something useful from it. So the fulfillment of my purpose comes from thinking of those who are going to receive it rather than what I'll get from that. So for me, it's not a performance. It's an offering to the one who has given me that talent. And this is this part seems most important. And since it is easy to forget it, it's better to repeat that intent when you're actually doing the job. So this is one thing that I thought I'll share with you, which means that we need some type of an inspiration that comes from a source that we respect, admire, and are devoted to. And that is something which at a permanent level can be only the divine. But then to be able to relate to this phenomenon, whether it can actually happen, I thought, it can happen in a young person who may not be that much interested in this, may not even believe that anything like God exists and actually can do it. That person also experiences this type of maximization of performance and a state of flow in one situation when that person is in love with another human being. And then, that's you might remember that famous, I think, those lines from, I think the film was Bobby. मैं शायर तो नहीं, जब से देखा तुझको मुझको शायरी आ गई. Now, which means that again that induces sort of flow. So what is common to the two is you love somebody intensely, you admire that person, and that person is inspiring you to bring out your best. The best is coming from the same source from within, which we are capable of. So you remove that normal obstacle between your divine essence and its expression through your instrument, that is the mind. You remove that barrier, inspired by that, the one you love and adore and are devoted to. And to start with, it could be a human being. Later on, it could be the divine. But even when it is the divine, it is not necessarily a nameless, faceless, amorphous divine, but the divine in those who will benefit from your song or music or what you speak or what you write or your painting, because that benefit doesn't necessarily have to be very concrete. Again, that's another thing. Even if it gives us some bit of pleasure, the person enjoys it, the person feels relaxed. That is also something that somebody is getting from what you are doing. So everything doesn't have to be too dead serious. Just enjoying it, feeling happy about it is also something. So if you're thinking of what happiness anybody will get, how relaxed a person will feel, how it will help somebody at least get rid of all the worries for some time, how it will act as a tranquilizer for somebody and a stimulant for another. So you're thinking of somebody else, then you find that you are at your best. Now, there are in the real world situation, there are barriers to the type of thing happening. And that we have to be conscious of. The less of those barriers, the better. And one of those barriers is the time limit. The time limit, because there are many types of time limits. One is the time limit that is imposed. For example, this talk, we try to stick to 1 hour. So the time limit imposed on us. Then there is the time limit of not continuing at a stretch for more than 90 minutes, as Richard told us, as a rule of the thumb. But then what finds it that if you continue beyond that, then the quality starts suffering in spite of being in that state of flow. So you need a little change of activity, something else to do in between. Then, the other type of time limit, not at a stretch for more than 25 minutes, 5 minutes break. Now, all those are not rigid. One has to get to the spirit or the principle behind these things rather than take them very literally. But at the same time, these are some of the time limits that we face, and that becomes an obstacle. But that's not too much of an obstacle. And we find that the less, the better the flow will be experienced. And I think a good example of this are the children. When they experience flow, when say they are playing, if they enjoy the game, they're not worried that about the time or any such limitation. Imagine somebody, some child flying a kite. Everything is perfect. The wind is blowing very well, and the direction of the wind and everything, the kite is so well set that the kite is really high, and the child is really enjoying it, because it doesn't happen every day that you get those optimal conditions. And for that child, that is that optimal experience. And then uh, it's imagine the child's mother calling the child's getting late, you have homework to do, it's meal time, and then finally comes the warning, it starts getting dark in the evening. The child can't even see the kite properly, but still the child wants to go on and on as long as possible. Now, that is again flow. The child doesn't have those limitations. Another limitation, which I thought maybe Richa will be able to confirm, is trying to structure it with the help of slides. I think slides in themselves become an obstacle to the flow. Of course, one could have a sort of good discussion and a very valid discussion on the pros and cons of showing slides. There are many benefits, but there are also many handicaps because of not just the abuse or misuse of slides, which also happens, but even otherwise, slides themselves have some handicaps as compared to doing it without the slides. But then I think one of the drawbacks would be slides on the whole probably tend to interrupt the flow. So that could be another limitation. So these are some of the things which can limit us, but probably we can overcome much of the limitations and obstacles if we are conscious of the underlying basis. That is, ultimately, we are tapping into the source that we have access to, that we are connected to, that is a part of our being, but which normally we are not fully aware of, because we tend to place all the reliance on the surface instruments rather than on what makes those instruments work. As the Kathopanishad says, that it's talking about the truths, not of the eyes that see, but what makes the eyes see, not of the ears that hear, but of what makes the ears hear. So in the same way, we are not talking about the hands that write or the brain that gets activated in a certain way when the hand is writing, but what makes the brain work that way and the hands work that way. So when you are conscious of that, that is when you are able to also actualize the possibilities which come from that source and give them an expression. So that is sort of what leads to the state of what we call flow. A lot of this terminology is actually rediscovering ancient wisdom, but because of a certain resistance that we have to certain terms, which goes back to the European Renaissance, which was basically the result of the conflict between science and religion. many of the terms which smell any way of religion or anything religious or spiritual, we have developed a certain resistance to using or accepting. But the phenomenon doesn't depend upon what terminology we use. The phenomenon remains a phenomenon. The process will work irrespective of what terms we use. So flow is yet another one of those examples, which is looking at a phenomenon which is well known. It was known much before it was described in this form by positive psychologists. Sri Aurobindo has talked about it when he was uh, moving away from in this in the freedom struggle and going towards that, and that was the stage at which he was again invited several times for speaking, and he would not feel like speaking, and then he would just sort of go completely unprepared, and it's just depending upon that higher source what he feels inspired to say, and he would be able to say, and still he had thousands of people listening to him. Uh, and again, there's an essay that he has written on poetry, where he said that there can be several sources from which the poetry has come, and you can make out from the poem where the poet got it from, whether it was composed at the intellectual level, trying to get rhyming words and words which sound very good, or whether it came from a source higher than the intellect. You can make out the difference in the poetry. So that is where, that is the type of thing that leads to a state of flow where you do your best, you do it very efficiently, and you can't, in fact, make out after some time when you're out of that flow that you actually did it. If you read the same thing that you created a few years earlier, you start wondering, oh, could I have done it? That's because at that state, you are not in your normal, inhibited, partially expressed self, but you were manifesting your highest potential because you were in touch with the highest. So I think that I'll stop here and wish Daksha the best in the exams. And as someone who generally did well in exams, I can tell you that one of the things which, again, is related to the flow is when you're preparing for a topic while preparing for the exam, you might have kept 2 hours, 4 hours, or 6 hours for that topic. So don't get worried that how can I do it in 2 hours? This topic is so big. Just glance through it. A lot that you have seen earlier will come back and realize that there's a limitation. You can't spend all the time on one topic. Huh? So that limitation is there, which means keep all the other switches off. Don't think of how many other topics have yet to be done. So one of the things which gives flow is that when you, no matter how much else you have to do, keep that switch on, all other switches are off. And again, when you are in the examination hall, again, the same thing. You have a question in front of you, focus on that question, but same time there you have to be realistic because you have to complete the paper. So, and you'll realize, again, you go into a state of flow. That is, it's in the examination hall that you realize that actually you know much more than you thought. But then there you have to inhibit your flow to some extent because of this realistic consideration that even if you spend all the time on one question, this examiner can't give you more than 100%. And the questions which you leave unattempted, the examiner has no choice but to give you a 0. So you have to complete the paper. That's also important. It always happens. You always know much more than you think. And so once the paper is in front of you, find it इतना मुश्किल, वैसे ही डरी हुई थी, फिजूल में इतना डर लग रहा था तो सब कुछ है, अब पेपर पूरा कैसे होगा? That is your feeling rather than that I don't know what to do.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really helpful and insightful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. We always eagerly look forward to learning from your deep wisdom and lovely insights. Thanks a lot. Participants, I would like to inform that the recording of today's talk, as well as, of course, all the talks that we have every Saturday, 6 p.m., are uploaded on our YouTube channel, Yes Spirituality. And you can follow the channel, you can subscribe to the channel to find extensive collection of videos on yoga, education, spirituality, and related subjects like self-help, psychology, and wellness. Richa, thanks again for this beautiful session today and for sparing your valuable time with all of us. And participants, thank you so much for being with us today. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.